Want to get published but don't know where to start? You're not alone. The big wide world of publishing is a complicated one to navigate, especially when you're starting out. But you have to start somewhere, and that somewhere can be here in the Virginia Tech English department. Join me, Sarah Leberknight, as I sit down with creative writing professor Joe Truscello, who publishes under a pen name, to get some advice on how to put your work out there and start the journey to getting published. For students looking to get published creatively, where should they start?
Students should start by reading different magazines and different journals, and then perking up when they find magazines and journals that are like, I like this, that make them excited because it somehow reminds them of their own writing. And then they should continue reading those magazines and journals for a little while before they actually submit anything, so that they can get a feel for what those magazines and journals publish and what they're looking for and what they value. And also to just see what's out there so that you're not just submitting things that have already been said. Does that make sense? Trust your judgment and go through things. Like if you read a couple of poems or stories in a journal or magazine and they really aren't working for you, you just move on. You know that maybe that's not the right space for you. And then, like if you're interested in genre writing, I think the thing to do would to start by finding smaller journals and magazines that focus on the genres you're interested in, and there's plenty of them. And so I think that, and then finding the ones that genuinely excite you, where it feels like you're encountering your people. Do you know what I mean? So I think that finding the space, the writing spaces that feel like, this is not that, I don't have that blah feeling that you sometimes have when you read, and then zooming in on those spaces and finding out their submission process and then going to them. I think that sometimes people spam the market and just send stuff everywhere, and that's going to just lead to a lot of rejection and a lot of feeling of failure. And there's going to be rejection anyway, and that's part of it. But I think you're really setting yourself up when you just send it to everywhere blindly without even knowing the publications.
What advice do you have for students working towards getting published / putting themselves out there?
Well, knowing that you're going to be rejected ahead of time is extremely important. I didn't really know that because no one talked to me about submitting that much before I first submitted. I just thought I was going to immediately be celebrated as a genius when I was started writing. And I know I talk to students like, it's like a little confessional thing I'm afraid to say, you know, but students always say the same thing to me, like, I think that too. And it is a harsh reminder that there's a lot of talented people out there, and it's very hard to get published if you don't really kind of expect the rejection, like I didn't. And so I think that going in with a mature understanding of like, okay, if I get rejected, it doesn't mean that I'm a terrible writer or something. It means that I'm a writer, because that's like the number one experience of being an artist of any kind is rejection. And so having that knowledge ahead of time, I think, is really important. And then also remembering that the people rejecting you are just flawed human beings. They're not some perfect interpreter that knows everything. They're just people with tastes, you know? And so I think it's just important to kind of remind yourself that they are not the overall, the be-all, end-all, and they're not the judge of you. They're just looking for certain things that pop for them personally, and that's it.
Lastly, is there anything here at VT, like students who are at Virginia Tech, could make use of when looking into publishing?
I think that, do you know Silhouette?
Yeah.
Like working for or submitting to that literary space, that publication, can give you a real understanding of what goes on in the conversations to accept a piece. And for me, working as an editor of different magazines over the years helped me understand, first of all, how not personal it is when you get rejections, because we would publish maybe 3 stories in an issue, and that would mean we'd have to reject 1,000. There's a lot of people writing, and there's only a small amount of space. And so seeing it from that end made me realize that it's a weird math game, and your thing has to hit the editors at the right moment when they're in the mood for you. It's like a very complicated thing, and so getting a view from the other side really helps. It makes it feel less scary. I'm telling you these stories not to dishearten you, but to make you see that, like, oh, if I get a rejection, that is okay. Just expect that hurdle, and expecting that hurdle will make it less painful, I think. You know what I mean? It'll still hurt, though.